Before we unleash this epic tale of silence, absolute power, and devastating revenge, you need to hit that like button and subscribe. This isn't just a comeback story. It's a blueprint for dynasty destruction, the silence of the serpent, the implosion of the Kiriakou dynasty. Attention. If you love epic revenge stories, absolute power plays, and jaw-dropping twists, you must stay until the very end. This is not a breakup story. It's the chronicle of one woman's silence and the deafening explosion that followed. And the woman you see on the London Tube, the one who looks exhausted, broken, and invisible, is actually a ghost. Eleanor Vance gave her boyfriend, Dominic Kane, everything she had left. And when he stole her last $800, she didn't cry. She didn't scream. She simply packed one small bag, left the key on the table, and walked out. She left him without a single complaint, because hours later, that same woman, in a bespoke Balenciaga suit, was entering a $90 million penthouse in Kensington, where a billionaire fixer was waiting. Part 1. The quiet exit and the stolen 800 tazas. The silence was the loudest thing in the flat. It was 11:04 a.m. on a Tuesday. Outside her fifth-floor flat in Hackney, East London, the city raged its usual symphony of aggressive horns, distant jackhammers, and the screech of bus brakes. But inside flat 5C, the only sound was the wet, rhythmic snoring of Dominic Kane. Eleanor Vance stood in the center of the cramped 40-square-meter studio, a single worn leather duffel bag at her feet. She was already packed. It hadn't taken long. Dominic was exactly where she'd left him 8 hours earlier, passed out on the lumpy, beer-stained couch they had found on a curb. His greasy, limp blonde hair was stuck to his face. An empty bottle of cheap Irish whiskey was overturned on the floor, a dark, sticky puddle creeping toward the eviction notice pinned to the coffee table. His prized 1974 Gibson acoustic guitar, the one he claimed was his soul, leaned precariously against a tower of pizza boxes. One string snapped and curled like a dead insect. Eleanor felt nothing. She had spent the last 734 days feeling everything. She'd felt hope when he had written a song just for her. She'd felt shame when she had to borrow money from her colleague at the tapas bar because Dominic needed inspiration, which always cost £60 and came in a bottle. She'd felt terror when he had smashed a plate near her head, screaming the world couldn't see his genius. And she'd felt a bone-deep exhaustion working double shifts to cover the rent he was supposed to share. But last night, the feeling had simply stopped. It was the rent money, 800. She'd saved it in cash, hidden inside an old copy of Alexander Dumas' The Count of Monte Cristo. It was the one thing she owned that he would never touch. He famously said, reading was for people who had given up on living. Yesterday, she had come home from her 14-hour shift, feet swollen and back aching, to find the book on the floor, its pages ripped out. The money was gone. Dominic, already drunk, had thrown an arm around her. "Babe, you won't believe it. This producer, protege of the great Eric Clapton himself, heard my demo. He said I'm the next Ed Sheeran. I just needed a good faith deposit for studio time. 800 quid. Can you believe it? Our ship has come in, Eleanor." Eleanor looked at his bloodshot eyes, the pathetic, desperate lie clinging to his lips. She had worked 70 hours for that ATA. It was for the landlord, Mr. Kapoor, a stern man who had already given them 2 extensions. She didn't shout, didn't cry, didn't list his failures, his broken promises, his casual cruelty. She didn't say, "What about last month's producer who took 500? Or the A&R guy before that?" She simply nodded. She picked up the ruined book. She went to the tiny, damp-stained bathroom. She showered and went to bed, turning her back to him, while he slurred about Grammy Awards and a house in the Cotswolds. She hadn't slept. She had only waited. Waited for the sound of his breathing to deepen, for the whiskey bottle to drop to the floor, for the sun to rise. And now, at 11:04 a.m., it was time. Her bag contained 3 items: a set of cheap black clothes, her toothbrush, and a small, torn photograph of a dark-haired woman on a sailboat. The Aegean Sea, a brilliant blue behind her. Eleanor walked to the coffee table. She pushed the eviction notice so it was front and center. Then she took her key, her last key, the one he hadn't lost, off her keychain and carefully placed it atop the red text of the final notice. She looked at him one last time. Dominic Kane. The man she had, for a brief, foolish time, convinced herself was a project, a brilliant, broken soul she could save. A small, bitter smile touched her lips. He wasn't a project. He was an anchor. And she was done with the ocean floor. She was so silent that the apartment's dust motes dancing in the single shaft of sunlight didn't seem to move. She opened the door, stepped out into the hallway smelling of stale curry and dampness, and pulled the door shut. The click of the deadbolt sliding into place was final. It was the sound of an ending. She left him without a single complaint. She didn't look back. Part 2. The Phoenix rises. Electra Stavros. The tube on the central line was crowded, hot, and smelled of body odor and burnt sugar. Eleanor stood near the doors, clinging to the overhead bar. Her worn jeans, frayed at the cuffs, and thin gray hoodie made her invisible. She was just another piece of the city's exhausted, slouching biomass. People pressed against her, faces buried in phones, eyes glazed over. No one saw her. This invisibility had been her shield for 2 years. Today, it was a disguise she was about to shed. She rode the train for 40 minutes, a journey that felt like crossing dimensions. She got off, not in a residential neighborhood, but at Knightsbridge Station. The sudden rush of wealth and polished surfaces was jarring. Tourists jammed the sidewalks, and the air smelled different, cleaner, with a hint of expensive perfume and black car exhaust. Eleanor walked 2 blocks. Her pace quickened. Her posture shifted with every stride. Her shoulders, which had been slumped in the flat, began to straighten. Her chin lifted. She didn't stop at the glittering, sterile lobby of a glass tower. She turned into a smaller, discreet limestone building and entered a salon that had no sign, only a small, engraved brass plaque. The Phoenix. The moment she stepped onto the white marble floor, the receptionist, a painfully chic woman named Chloe with a severe black bob, looked up from her screen. Her professional smile wavered, replaced by a flash of confusion and distaste at Eleanor's clothes. "May I help you?" Eleanor held her gaze. She said nothing, just held the woman's stare. Chloe's eyes widened, a small spark of recognition. "My God, Ms. Stavros." "Hello, Chloe," Eleanor said. Her voice was different. The slightly rough, hurried cadence of her barmaid persona was gone. In its place was a low, smooth, chillingly aristocratic contralto. "Of course, right this way. We've had the suite on standby for you." Chloe was flustered, tripping over her words as she ushered Eleanor past the main salon, where women with 10,000 pounds and handbags sipped champagne, towards a private, soundproofed VIP room. The room was waiting. On a rack hung a black garment bag. On a vanity was a set of brushes and cosmetics that looked like surgical tools. 2 people waited, a man with sharp scissors and a sharper suit, and a woman with a makeup case that cost more than Dominic's guitar. "Just the re-entry, please, Jean-Pierre," Eleanor said, dropping her duffel bag. It landed on the plush Persian rug with a soft, pathetic thump. For the next 2 hours, she was a project. Jean-Pierre went to work, washing 2 years of grime, cheap shampoo, and despair out of her hair. He made a sound of disapproval at the split ends and the bad box dye she'd given herself in her bathroom. With methodical snips, he cut away the persona of Eleanor Vance. He restored the long, strategic layers and returned her color to its natural, deep chestnut, so dark it was nearly black, with a sheen that spoke of health and obscene wealth. The makeup artist Anya was next. She didn't apply makeup. She sculpted. She erased the exhaustion, the dark circles from 14-hour shifts, the subtle malnutrition. She defined her high cheekbones, which had been hidden by a sort of willful anonymity. She finished with a dark red lipstick shade that seemed less like a color and more like a warning. Finally, Eleanor stood and unzipped the garment bag. Inside was a Balenciaga pantsuit. The fabric was a midnight blue wool-silk blend. It wasn't just a suit, it was armor. She shed her jeans and hoodie, leaving them in a pile on the floor like a snakeskin. She slid into the suit, the silk lining cool against her skin. She buttoned the sharp-structured blazer. She slipped her feet, calloused from cheap trainers, into a pair of black, brutally simple Manolo Blahnik stilettos. She looked in the mirror. The woman looking back was not the girl from Flat 5C. That girl was a fictional ghost. This woman was terrifying. Her eyes were hard, intelligent, and cold. Her posture was perfect. She was Electra Stavros, and she had returned from the dead. "Is the car here?" she asked Chloe, who was fluttering near the door. "Yes, Ms. Stavros. Mikhail is waiting downstairs." "Good. Charge the bill to my father's estate account." "Thank you, Jean-Pierre," she said, turning to the stylist who was admiring his work. "It is easy to polish a diamond, mademoiselle," he said with a small bow. Electra swept out of the salon, her heels clicking like punctuation on the marble. The women in the main lounge looked up, their eyes wide with envy and curiosity. They didn't know who she was, but they knew she was someone. The black Mercedes Maybach E80 was idling at the curb, a 300,000-pound vacuum in the river of yellow taxis. The driver, a large man in a dark suit with the broken and rebuilt nose of a former Spetsnaz operative, opened the back door. "Ms. Stavros," Mikhail said, his voice a low rumble. "It's been too long." "It has, Misha," she said, sliding into the soft, buttery white leather. "How is he?" "Mr. Thorne is impatient, as always." "And the dossier on Kane?" "Secured." Electra nodded. The door shut with a pneumatic thump, sealing her away from the city noise. The car eased into traffic silently. She looked out the tinted window at the people on the sidewalk, at the tired-faced woman who looked like her 3 hours ago. She had crossed the divide. The chasm between the two worlds was just a car door. Interacción con el público. Eleanor's silence was her weapon. Do you believe the best revenge is always the one executed in secret? Let me know your opinion in the comments. Part 3. The meeting in the sky, the Stavros vault. The Maybach didn't so much drive as it glided, a silent shark navigating the turbulent waters of Kensington traffic. Electra sat perfectly still in the back. The scent of the car's custom Napa leather and her own freshly applied perfume, Portrait of a Lady, filled the compartment. The silence was a balm. For 2 years, her world had been noise. Dominic's endless complaining monologues, his loud, bad music, the neighbors' shouting matches, the clatter of plates at the bar. This silence was different. It was the silence of power. The thick, laminated glass of the Maybach didn't just block sound. It deleted it. They drove south toward the cluster of incredibly slender skyscrapers known as Billionaire'S Row. Mikhail pulled the car into a private, gated underground entrance next to the main gates of the Shard, the colossal tower that dominated the skyline. A private security guard, recognizing the car, nodded and opened an unmarked steel door. It led to a small, private elevator lobby, clad in dark veined marble. Mikhail pressed a single unmarked button. There was no ding. The doors simply slid open, and the elevator began its ascent, moving with a speed that made Elektra's stomach clench slightly. The elevator didn't open to a hallway. It opened directly to the sky. The penthouse was 1,000 square meters of glass, steel, and stone, occupying the entire 50th floor. 7-meter-tall windows provided a 360-degree view that spanned all of London, from the financial district to the green expanse of Hyde Park, spread out like a carpet to the north. The space's decor was minimalist to the point of being monastic. The floors were poured concrete, polished to a mirror shine. The furniture was sparse and brutalist. A single enormous sofa, some Le Corbusier chairs. On the wall was not a television, but a single massive 4-meter-wide painting. A Mark Rothko, its deep, vibrant fields of crimson and black. A window into a terrible, beautiful void. A man stood facing the window, looking north. He was tall, thin, and wore not a suit, but the casual, obscenely expensive uniform of the truly powerful, a dark cashmere turtleneck, charcoal Brunello Cucinelli trousers, and soft leather loafers worn without socks. He turned. He was perhaps 60, with a sharp, intelligent face, silver hair slicked back, and the pale, unwavering eyes of a hawk. This was Marcus Thorne. He was not, by traditional definition, a billionaire. He was something far more dangerous, the man who managed the Billionaire'S. He was the lawyer, the fixer, the executor of the Stavros estate, and the most trusted, the only trusted, advisor to Elektra's late father, Konstantin Kyriakou. "You're late," he said. His voice was like dry ice. "The chrysalis phase took longer than anticipated," Elektra replied, walking toward him. Her heels echoed in the vast empty space. They did not hug. They did not shake hands. They stood a meter apart, two statues inspecting their domain. "It is done then," he stated. "It is done," she confirmed. "I left this morning. Any complications?" "The asset." "Dominic?" "None. He was asleep. He won't even know you're gone until he's hungry or sober. Whichever comes first." "Good." Mikhail intercepted the studio producer Dominic was so excited about. He was one of Heiress' men, a low-level private investigator from Birmingham. Pathetic. Elektra felt a chill, but her expression remained neutral. So the flat was compromised. "It was becoming so," Marcus said. "Dominic was a security leak from the day you met him, a walking, talking liability. But he was, for a time, the perfect cover. Nobody looks for Elektra Stavros, heiress to a $40 billion shipping and logistics empire, washing dishes in a tapas bar and living with a failed musician in a walk-up flat in Hackney. The twist. The great secret, Eleanor Vance had never existed. She was a construct, a role played by Elektra Stavros, the only daughter of Konstantin Kyriakou, who had died in a tragic sailing accident in the Aegean Sea 2 years and 1 month ago. The accident, Marcus had confirmed within hours, was a professional hit orchestrated by Elektra's older half-brother, Heiress Kyriakou. Heiress, the son of Constantine's disastrous first marriage, was a creature of pure, uncut greed and entitlement. He saw the Kyriakou global company as his birthright, and Elektra as a pest to be exterminated. The moment her father was gone, Elektra's life was on a timer. Marcus Thorne moved first. While Heiress was still celebrating with his lawyers in Geneva, Marcus had invoked his power as the estate executor. He had whisked Elektra away from her university dorm, liquidated a hidden set of her father's assets, and made her disappear into the anonymous grime of London under a new name, a new persona, a subtle rhinoplasty, and hair dye, and a new life. She was to wait, Remain hidden until Marcus could legally and logistically dismantle Heiress' power. So, Electra said, moving to stand beside him. The waiting is over. Yes. Marcus allowed himself a thin, dangerous smile. As of oit atpatua, Heiress Kyriakou was arrested by Swiss federal authorities. The charges include 42 counts of wire fraud, embezzlement, and, thanks to the Birmingham producer who turned state's witness, conspiracy to commit murder. Electra closed her eyes for a single second, processing the weight of the words. 2 years. 2 years of her life, living in filth, serving greasy eggs to angry lorry drivers, pretending to love a man she grew to despise. It was all over. He is finished, Marcus stated. His assets are frozen. His proxies on the board are being removed as we speak. He will never see the outside of a prison. Electra opened her eyes. The view of Hyde Park was sharp, clear, and beautiful. And Dominic? Mikhail will be visiting him this afternoon. A severance package. He doesn't deserve it. It's not for him, Marcus said, turning his pale eyes to her. It's for us. It's the cost of cleanup. We buy his silence, show him the file we have on his little secondary deal with Heiress' PI, and he vanishes. He'll take the money. Men like Dominic always take the money. Electra nodded. She thought of the 8 hundos, the rent money. It seemed so small now. A different currency from a different life. Good, let it be so. Now, Marcus said, gesturing to the vast empty room. This is yours, a temporary base of operations. The staff is virtual. Security is biometric. You are, for the first time in 2 years, safe. Electra looked around the cold, beautiful, empty penthouse. It's just another cage, Marcus. A bigger, prettier one. It's a fortress, he corrected. And you are no longer a prisoner. You are a queen. And your kingdom is in ruins. Heiress did more damage than I thought. He gestured to a massive, dark wooden table. On it was a single encrypted laptop. Welcome back to the family, Electra. We have work to do. Part 4. The final betrayal. Electra didn't move toward the laptop. Not yet. Her mind was still catching up to her body. The Balenciaga suit felt like a second skin. But the phantom itch of the cheap polyester uniform she'd worn for 700 days was still there. He contacted him, Electra said. It wasn't a question. Heiress, he didn't just find Dominic. Marcus's face was impassive. He knew this part would be difficult. Heiress' people have been running digital sweeps for 2 years. Facial recognition. Keyword matching. They were looking for anyone who fit your profile. But you were clean. You followed protocol perfectly. No social media. Cash only. No digital footprint. He paused, then continued. The leak was Dominic. It was always going to be Dominic. He's weak and he's vain. 2 weeks ago, he was drunk and complaining on some obscure musician's forum. My girlfriend doesn't understand my art. I'm a genius trapped in a hovel. I'm dating far below my level. Standard narcissism. Electra's jaw clenched. She had heard those exact phrases screamed at her, whispered to his friends on the phone. But then, Marcus said, he posted a picture. He was trying to prove to these internet strangers that he could, in fact, get a good-looking girl. He posted a photo he'd taken of you sleeping 6 months ago. You thought you'd deleted it. You'd had a fight. He'd taken the photo and you'd smashed his phone. Apparently, he saved the SIM card. Electra felt a wave of violation so profound it made her nauseous. She remembered that fight. He'd woken her at 3 a.m., drunk, demanding she perform for him. She had refused. He'd grown angry, called her a prude, and snapped the photo, the flash blinding her. Fine, I'll show my friends what you're holding out on. The phone had been smashed against the wall. She'd felt a small victory, a victory that turned out to be a lie. That photo was enough, Marcus said, lowering his voice. It was low res. but it was enough. It tripped a facial recognition algorithm Heiress was running. Within an hour, they had a possible hit. Within a day, they had a PI on your block. The PI, this idiot from Birmingham, needed a way in. So he posed as a music producer. He found Dominic at his usual bar. Electra finally walked, not toward the laptop, but toward the window. The city below was a blur of tiny, insignificant lights. Dominic didn't just believe him, she whispered. No, Marcus said, his voice right behind her. Not at first. The PI offered him £500 for studio time. Dominic took it. Then, the PI said he was really interested in Dominic's ethereal girlfriend. Said he worked for a private art collector who would pay big money for candid portraits of her. He offered Dominic £10,000 for a set of new, high-resolution photos. Electra closed her eyes. Dominic hesitated, Marcus said. He was greedy, but he was also a coward. He was suspicious. So the PI sweetened the deal, said his boss was also willing to fund an entire album, a £50,000 deal. All he needed was confirmation, proof of who you were, where you came from. He showed Dominic a real photo, you standing next to your father at the Monaco Grand Prix. The memory hit her. Her father laughing, his arm around her. She was 19, wearing a white summer dress and a diamond necklace. She was happy. What did Dominic say? Electra asked, her voice dangerously low. He said, "Fuck, I knew it. I knew she was lying." He told the PI that you were reserved, that you acted high and mighty, that you thought you were too good for him. He saw it not as a danger, but as a payday. He saw it as confirmation that he was the special one, that a princess had been hiding with him. He thought he was about to be rich. The £800 wasn't for studio time. It was a test, a final good faith gesture from the PI to Dominic. Bring me her rent money, the cash she has hidden, and I'll know you're serious. I'll know you can control her. And Dominic had done it. He had ruined her book, her only small sanctuary, and stolen her last pounds. Not for a demo tape, but to sell her out. The silence in the penthouse stretched. Electra watched a tiny jet, a silver needle, weave its way across the dark velvet sky. The lack of complaint, Marcus said quietly. When I heard from my surveillance team that you simply went to bed, I worried. I thought he had finally broken you. Electra turned from the window. Her face was a mask of cold white marble. The red lipstick was a slash of violence. Broken? She said, her voice dripping an icy venom that would have frozen Dominic's blood. He couldn't break me. He wasn't important enough to break me. She looked at Marcus. I didn't complain, Marcus, because you don't complain about an insect. You don't argue with a cockroach. You simply step on it. His betrayal. This, all of it. She encompassed the sordid tale with a sweep of her hand. It doesn't surprise me. It's the most predictable thing he's ever done. He was always a parasite. I just didn't know how deep he was trying to burrow. She finally walked to the table. She ran her hand over the cold metal surface of the laptop. You said there was a payoff, she stated. A stupid, greedy one. But yes, I don't want him to have the £10,000 severance package. It's a small price, Electra. No, she cut him off. Her authority was absolute. It was the voice of Constantine Kyriakou, the man who moved fleets of oil tankers like chess pieces. He doesn't get a reward for trying to sell me out. I don't care about the money. I care about the message. He thinks he's about to be rich. He thinks he's getting away with it. No, he gets nothing. Marcus studied her. The girl was gone. The woman standing before him was her father's daughter. What do you propose? He asked. Mikhail is visiting him, correct? He's on his way now. Good. Electra opened the laptop. It sprang to life instantly. Asking for no password. Only your timing was environmental, Electra. Only your fingerprint. Tell Mikhail to deliver the restraining order. Tell him to deliver the file on the PI. But the check. I want him to tear it up in Dominic's face. I want Dominic to know he gets nothing. Not from Heiress, And not from me. I want him left in that filthy flat. With his broken guitar, his eviction notice, and the knowledge that he squandered the only valuable thing he ever touched. Marcus allowed himself another thin smile. I'll make the call. Do it, she said, her eyes already scanning the first document on the screen. A catastrophic Q3 earnings report for Kiriakou Global. I'm done with the past. It's time to deal with the future. Part 5. The Annihilation. Dominic's End. Dominic Kane woke up at 3:17 p.m. His head felt like a cracked china bowl held together by shrinking rawhide. His mouth tasted like old battery acid. He groaned, rolling off the sofa, and his bare foot landed squarely in the sticky, congealed puddle of whiskey. "Damn it!" he shouted at the empty room. "Eleanor! Eleanor! Clean this up!" Silence. "Eleanor!" He staggered, hit by a wave of vertigo and nausea. The flat was oppressively silent and bright. Why was it so bright? "Babe, where are you?" he yelled, stumbling toward the small kitchen. She wasn't there. The bathroom. Empty. A prickle of annoyance, not worry, started in his stomach. She was probably at the bar doing another double shift. He hated when she did that. It made her tired and moody, and she never wanted to celebrate his imminent success. He staggered back into the living room, rubbing his face, and that's when he saw it. The key was sitting on top of the eviction notice. His heart didn't sink. It leaped into his throat with a cold, metallic taste. "No, no, no, no!" He ran to the closet. Her side was empty. The 3 cheap dresses, her bar uniform, her 1 pair of nice shoes, all gone. He ripped open the bathroom cabinet, her toothbrush, her cheap rose-scented face gel. Gone. She can't!" he muttered. He was breathing fast. "She can't leave. Not now. Not when I'm this close." His mind wasn't on her, on the 2 years they had spent, on the woman who had paid for him. His mind was on the £50,000, the producer. His album. He fumbled for his phone, his hands shaking. He had to call Mr. Bellucci, the Birmingham producer. He had to tell him she'd chickened out, but that he could find her. He knew her. He found his phone. But before he could dial, his eyes darted to the copy of The Count of Monte Cristo, the place where she kept the rent money. "Oh, thank God," he breathed. "She left the money. She's just mad. She'll be back." He grabbed the book. It was empty. Of course it was empty. He had emptied it. The £800 was gone. "Wait!" A new horror seized him. He had given the £800 to Bellucci. Eleanor had come home. She had seen the money was gone. And now, she was gone. "She took the rest!" he screamed, tearing the tiny apartment apart. He flipped the sofa cushions. He threw his few remaining books. He was looking for a stash. He was convinced she had the princess money left over. There was nothing. Just dust, old receipts, and a single broken guitar pick. He was ruined. Bellucci's £50,000 depended on him having Eleanor. And now she was not only gone, but the landlord, Mr. Kapoor, would be here any minute. He was broke. He was blocked from his payday. The sound was like a hammer blow on the door. Dominic froze. "Mr. Kapoor, look. I just need 1 more day, man. I got a huge deal coming." The knock came again, louder, more solid. It wasn't the impatient rap of a landlord. This was a knock of absolute authority. He crept to the door. He looked through the peephole, and his blood turned to ice water. A man was standing there. A very large man in a very black suit. He looked less like a man, and more like a refrigerator wrapped in tailoring. His nose was crooked, his expression blank. "Who is that?" Dominic squeaked through the door. "Mr. Kane!" a voice boomed. It was the man in the peephole, Mikhail. "I have a delivery for you, From Ms. Stavros. From Eleanor? A wave of relief so powerful it made him weak washed over Dominic. She sent someone. She sent money. Of course, she was just testing him. This guy. This was her family's driver. This was it. The payday. He fumbled with the locks and yanked the door open. A pathetic, greasy smile plastered to his face. Oh man, thank God. You're from her family, right? Look, she's just upset. I can explain everything. Mikhail didn't move. He simply looked down at Dominic. Then he looked with profound disgust at the state of the apartment. Mr. Kane, Mikhail said. He held a thick manila envelope. I have 2 items for you. He handed Dominic a bundle of papers. This is a temporary restraining order. You are to remain 300 meters from Ms. Stavros at all times. Any attempt to contact her, her family, or her associates will result in your immediate arrest. Dominic's smile evaporated. Stavros? What is this? A restraining order? That's crazy. I love her. Mikhail ignored him. Second, he said, holding up the thick manila envelope. Is that it? Dominic's eyes lit up again. The money. Okay. Look, a joke is a joke. It's the cash, right? For my silence. I get it. I'm quiet. I won't say anything. This, Mikhail continued, is a file compiled by our security team. It contains transcripts of your conversations with Mr. Anthony Bellucci. It contains time-stamped photographs of you meeting him at the bar on 48th Street. It contains copies of your text messages agreeing to provide candid photos of Ms. Stavros in exchange for $10,000. And it contains a sworn affidavit from Mr. Bellucci, who is now in federal custody, stating that you agreed to help him confirm Ms. Stavros' identity for his client, who he knew intended to kidnap her. The color drained from Dominic's face. He was white as bleached bone. I didn't know. I thought he was a producer. It was for my art. You, Mikhail said, lowering his voice to a terrifying whisper, are a special kind of stupid. You tried to sell a woman out for $50,000 and you didn't even get the money. Pathetic. Dominic was whimpering now, tears of pure self-pity running down his face. Please, I'm ruined. She has to help me. The severance, the £10,000. That was the deal, wasn't it? Please. Mikhail looked down at the envelope in his hand. From it, he pulled out a single bank draft. Dominic's eyes fixed on it. A starving dog doped on hope. It was made out to Dominic Kane. The amount? £10,000. This? Mikhail said. Yes, please. I'll do anything. I'll disappear, I swear. Ms. Stavros wanted me to give you a message. Mikhail held the check up in front of Dominic's desperate eyes, and with 2 hands, he tore it in half. Rip! He tore it again, and again, and again, until it was only a cloud of confetti. He opened his hand and let the pieces flutter to the whiskey-stained floor. Dominic let out a sound, a high, sharp whimper of a wounded animal. The message, Mikhail said, dusting off his hands. That. She knows what you did. Mr. Bellucci is gone. His client is gone. The money is gone. You are nothing. Mikhail placed the thick manila envelope with the evidence on the table, right on top of the eviction notice. This is your copy. We have the original. If you ever say the name Electra Stavros again, if you ever think about her again, if you so much as post a heartbroken song about a mysterious girl on YouTube, this file goes to the National Police. Conspiracy to commit kidnapping carries a 25-year sentence. You will take this loss, be evicted, and disappear. You are a footnote. Do you understand? Dominic had collapsed onto the floor, a greasy, sobbing heap amidst the confetti of his lost fortune. He rocked back and forth, mumbling, I didn't know. Mikhail looked down at him for one more second. Yes, you did, he said. He turned, walked out of the apartment, and slammed the door shut, leaving Dominic Kane alone with the ruins of his life. Part 6. The War Room and the Titan's Antidote. While Dominic Kane's world was being dismantled, Elektra Stavros was looking at a different kind of disaster. The encrypted laptop was open, projecting a holographic screen onto the far wall of the penthouse. It showed not movies or stock quotes. It was a live three-dimensional model of the Kyriakou global shipping fleet. Red, yellow, and green lights pulsed all over the globe. There were far too many red lights. He leveraged it to the hilt, Marcus Thorne said, sipping a tiny, dark espresso. He had conjured it from a machine that was seamlessly integrated into a marble wall. Heiress was a gambler. He thought the company was his personal piggy bank. He was shorting his own stock, using company assets as collateral for disastrous side ventures in crypto and rare earth mineral speculation. He was trying to bleed it dry, Elektra said, her eyes scanning the data. He was selling off our core assets, the Rotterdam Deepwater Port, the entire LNG tanker fleet, to shell corporations. His own shell corporations? Yes, Marcus confirmed. He was diverting the cash to private accounts in the Cayman Islands and Liechtenstein. He knew, I suspect, his time was limited. He was trying to extract as much value as possible before the authorities, or frankly, us, caught up to him. He was a cornered rat, chewing through the wires. Elektra navigated to another file, a list of the Kyriakou Global Board of Directors. A row of stern, old faces looked back at her, and they just let him? Some were complicit, old money allies of his mother's family. They are being removed. Most, Marcus said with a sigh, were simply asleep. Your father, Constantine, was a titan. He didn't build a team. He built a personality cult. He was the sun, and they were just little planets orbiting him. When he died, and Heiress, the rightful male heir, stepped in, they simply kept orbiting. They were happy to collect their board fees and look the other way, as long as the dividends kept coming. But the dividends stopped, Elektra said, pointing to a graph showing a 90% drop in shareholder value over 18 months. By then it was too late. Heiress had them. He had implicated them in his earliest smaller frauds. They were trapped. Elektra finally sat down, the wool and silk of her suit hissing against the leather of the chair. She felt a deep weariness, not the physical exhaustion of the bar, but a profound psychic drain. She had escaped one parasite only to discover she was just one cell in a much larger, diseased organism. She had spent 2 years hiding from one monster, only to be handed his crown and his 40 billion in debt and decay. What was it all for? She asked quietly. He's gone. Heiress is in prison, but he won. He destroyed my father's legacy. Not yet, Marcus said. He walked over to a bookshelf, the only one in the room, and ran his hand over the spines. He pulled out a book. It wasn't a rare first edition. It was a simple leather-bound journal, its corners worn. He placed it on the table in front of her. Your father was a titan, yes, but he was not a fool. He knew Heiress. He knew his appetites. And I believe he had a suspicion about his own accident long before it happened. Elektra's head snapped up. He was growing cautious, Marcus said. In his last year, he created this penthouse as a panic room under my name. He moved assets into trusts that Heiress could never touch. Trusts that were activated only upon 2 conditions: his death and my biometric confirmation that you were safe. He called it the Odyssey Protocol, a way to bring you home if you were ever lost at sea. He left you this. He told me to give it to you the day you were ready to come home. Elektra's hand trembled slightly as she reached for the journal. She opened the cover. The first page was her father's handwriting. Bold, crisp, and impatient. Half Greek, half Spanish. My dearest Elektra, if you are reading this, I have failed you. My life has been sacrificed. I am sorry. Sorry that I put this burden on you. Sorry that I could not protect you from my first greatest mistake, Heiress. But my sorrow ends there. I do not regret the legacy I built. It is strong. But a company is not just steel and numbers, my daughter. It is a living thing, and it can be poisoned. Heiress is a poison. By the time you read this, Marcus will have cleansed the wound, but the poison will still be in the bloodstream. The board, the banks, the partners. They will all be infected with his fear, his greed, or their incompetence. You are the only antidote. They will not respect you. They will see a girl. They will see a victim. They will see a grieving daughter they must manage. You must under no circumstances allow this. You are not a girl. You are a Stavros, and a Stavros does not grieve. A Stavros builds. In this journal, you will find not my secrets. You will find my weapons, the private ledgers, the favors owed to me by every politician, banker, and rival, from Athens to Hong Kong. The back doors to every account, the kill codes for the complicit board members. Do not be the daughter, be the titan. Do not mourn me. Avenge me. And you avenge me not by destroying Heiress. I trust Marcus has taken care of that, but by saving my company, having your company. Your father, loving and very proud. Electra closed the journal. She took a deep, shaky breath. The smell of old leather and her father's ink filled her lungs. She set the book down and looked at Marcus. The hardness in her eyes had returned, but it was different. It wasn't the cold, brittle anger of a victim. It was the forge-hot, focused heat of a weapon. A temporary base of operations, you said? Yes, Marcus replied. Wrong, Electra said, rising to her feet. It's a war room, and we've been on defense for 2 years. It's time to attack. She looked at the laptop, at the map of her broken empire. Marcus, get me a full breakdown of the board's personal portfolios. I want to know where every one of them is vulnerable, and give me a list of the top 3 M&A firms in London. I want the best. The I meant ruthless. What are you planning, Electra? Heiress was selling the fleet. Good. He saved me the trouble, Electra said, her mind moving with terrifying speed. He thought he was selling to his own shell companies, but you said he leveraged to the hilt, which means the banks own those shell companies now, and the banks don't want ships. They want cash. She smiled. It was her father's smile. All teeth. We're going to buy them back, for pennies on the dollar. We're going to use my father's secret trusts, the money I now control, to buy our own assets back from the very banks that financed my brother's betrayal. We aren't just going to save Kiriakou Global, Marcus. We are going to gut it, clean it, and relaunch it. Marcus looked at her. His hawk eyes were, for the first time, filled with something akin to genuine pride. That is a very, very big move. It's the only move, Electra said. My father was right. It's time to stop being a ghost. It's time to be a titan. Part 7. The unseating of the board. 3 weeks later, the main boardroom of Kiriakou Global, located on the 60th floor of a glass and steel tower in London's financial district, was a tomb. It was lined in heavy, dark mahogany, and a 15-meter table stretched across its center. It was a room built for intimidation, designed by men in the 80s who believed power was synonymous with weight and shadow. Seated around the table were the 12 remaining board members. They were, without exception, men. All were over 65. They were a Mount Rushmore of old money entitlement and silent panic. They were whispering among themselves, their expensive silk-suited shoulders hunched. Heiress is in federal prison. The stock has been delisted. The banks have called in every loan. We're insolvent. And who is this girl? Who called the meeting? Constantine's daughter. The one who disappeared? Rumor is she was in a mental institution for 2 years. A complete write-off. Marcus Thorne is with her. This is a power play. She can't play with empty hands. We're bankrupt. The heavy oak doors at the end of the room swung open. Marcus Thorne entered first. He looked, as always, severe and impeccable. He took a position against the wall, not at the table. He was an observer. Then Electra Stavros entered. The room went silent. They expected the write-off. They expected a pale, tearful girl in a black mourning dress. They were not prepared for the woman who stood before them. She wore a bespoke suit, sharp as a razor, in a sterile, pale gray that was almost white. Her dark hair was pulled back into a tight, severe bun that emphasized her high cheekbones and her father's jawline. Her red lipstick was the only color on her. She carried nothing but a single thin tablet. She walked to the head of the table, her father's chair, and stood there, her hands resting on its back. She did not sit. She simply stared them down, her eyes moving slowly from one terrified, skeptical face to the next. The silence lengthened. It was her silence now, not the apartment's. It was the silence of absolute power. "Good morning, gentlemen," she said. Her voice was cold, clear, and amplified by the room's acoustics. A man at the far end, Arthur Pennington, the interim board chairman, cleared his throat. "Ms. Stavros, Electra, on behalf of the board, we want to offer our deepest, heartfelt condolences for the loss of your father and for your own odyssey. We are relieved to see you well." "Are you, Arthur?" she replied. Her eyes were locked on him. "Are you relieved? Because I am not. I'm horrified. Look, young lady," another board member, a man named Harleston, began. "You will not call me young lady," Electra snapped, her voice cutting the air like a whip. "You will not call me Electra. You will refer to me as Ms. Stavros, or Madam Chairwoman. I am, as of 9:00 a.m. this morning, the majority shareholder of this company." A bomb had exploded. The men sputtered. "But that's impossible. Heiress' shares are frozen. The company is insolvent." Electra tapped her tablet. The massive screen at the end of the room lit up. It was a bank transfer confirmation. A single transfer. For $5 billion. Kiriakou Global was, as you correctly noted, bankrupt, Electra said calmly. The company's debts, guaranteed by Heiress, were called in by a consortium of banks. Those banks, as of yesterday, foreclosed on our core assets, our entire tanker fleet, our port leases, and this building. "It just so happens," she said, a tiny, cold smile playing on her lips, "that I recently came into an inheritance, a private trust set up by my father, that my half-brother knew nothing about. This morning, I formed a new holding company, and that holding company bought all of Kiriakou Global's toxic debt from the banks for 30 pence on the pound." She let that sink in. "I," she said, "am now your sole creditor. I own your debt, which means I own you." She looked at Arthur Pennington. "Arthur, your personal holding company, Pennington Ventures, co-signed 2 of Heiress' most fraudulent loans. You are personally liable for £300 million. I expect you to be ruined by nightfall." She turned to Harleston. "Mr. Harleston, your family's shipping line has been leasing our dry docks in Singapore at a 90% discount for 18 months, courtesy of Heiress. That is a gift I would value at £80 million. I believe the FCA will be very interested in that. Unless," she returned to the head of the table, "you all tender your resignations, effective immediately." The room was in a freezing silence. "You can't," Pennington whispered. "This is our company, and you allowed his degenerate son, a murderer and a thief, to gut it like a fish while you held the fins." Electra shot back, her voice low and dangerous. "You stood by. You were complicit. You were cowardly. You were weak." She looked at Pennington. "You thought I was a write-off. You thought I was a grieving girl. Gentlemen, for 2 years I lived in a one-room flat in Hackney. I served beer to pigs. I lived with a man who last week tried to sell me out to my brother's assassins for £50,000. The blood ran cold. This wasn't a story you would have read in the Financial Times. Do you understand? That after that, you don't scare me? This room doesn't scare me. Your titles, your old money, and your disappointment mean absolutely nothing. You are the past, an infection, and I am the cure. She tapped her tablet again. Your resignation letters are pre-written. They are on the tablets in front of you. You will sign them. You will vacate this building within the hour. If you do not, Mr. Thorne will deliver my father's personal files on every one of you, the Odyssey Protocol, to the Serious Fraud Office. I believe you all know what those contain. One by one, with trembling hands, the men picked up their styluses, the kill codes her father had called them. Within 5 minutes, it was done. The entire board of directors was dissolved. "Thank you, gentlemen," Electra said. "Security will escort you out." They shuffled out of the room, broken old men avoiding her gaze. Marcus Thorne remained by the wall, watching. Electra Stavros finally sat in her father's chair. It fit her perfectly. She looked at Marcus. "Get the KKR M&A team on the line, and tell the press I will make a statement at 4 p.m. Kyriakou Global is not just under new management, it is reborn." Marcus nodded, a rare, genuine smile on his face. "And the penthouse, Ms. Stavros?" Electra looked out the window at the London skyline. The penthouse, the glass tower, felt like a distant memory, a stepping stone. "Sell it," she said. "I'm moving on to the Eclipse." The Eclipse was her father's 150-meter private yacht, a vessel that was itself a mobile corporate headquarters. "And Marcus?" "Yes, Madam Chairwoman. Find Mr. Kapoor, the landlord of my old apartment in Hackney. Buy his building. Forgive the debt of all his tenants. All of them, except the one in 5C. I want that eviction notice for Dominic served immediately." Electra turned back to her screen. She left him without complaint because her problems were, and always had been, so much bigger than him. He wasn't even a footnote. This story was never about her entering a penthouse with a billionaire. It was about her leaving her old life to become the billionaire. The power, the throne, and she had just taken her seat. Final call to action and reflection. The story of Electra proves that the quietest person in the room is often the most dangerous. She didn't fight her small battles because she was preparing for a total war. She went from the gutter to the throne. Key question. Do you think Electra's decision not to give Dominic a single penny of the severance, leaving him with total ruin, was an act of justified cruelty or simply the necessary cleanup of a mistake? Share your thoughts and arguments in the comments. If this story of silence, betrayal, and the ultimate comeback hooked you, please hit the like button. It truly helps the channel. Share this video with someone who loves a story about a powerful turnaround. And if you haven't already, subscribe and hit the bell so you don't miss a single story of power and drama happening behind closed doors. We have new stories every week. Thanks for tuning in.